The FBI is not in the business of moderating content or causing any social media company to suppress or censor.
That is not what the court has found.
What I would also say is among the things that you listed off, I find ironic the reference to the lab leak theory. The idea that the FBI would somehow be involved in suppressing references to the lab leak theory is somewhat absurd when you consider the fact that the FBI was the only agency in the entire intelligence community to reach the assessment that it was more likely than not that that was the explanation for the pandemic.
Your agents pulled it off the internet, sir. That's what the evidence in the court has found.
All right. Today, the House Judiciary Committee grilled FBI Director Christopher Wray on the agency's censorship of online dissent. Despite the evidence, Wray denied colluding with big tech to suppress evidence of a lab leak in Wuhan. Joining me now is Kentucky Senator Rand Paul. Senator, always fantastic to see you, sir. You sent a letter to the Judiciary Committee informing them of Director Wray's failure to respond to multiple requests for information on the China virus origins. Did you get any of the answers today that you wanted to see?
You know, I think in the end, Wray is probably misinformed. I know they're not supposed to be misinformed over there, but his agents were meeting, many of the agents, on a weekly basis and routinely taking down posts. I think the evidence from the court trial will show that some of the posts did have to do with COVID origins. Now, he is right. The FBI at the top level did investigate and did promise and did reveal that they believe that the virus did leak from the lab in Wuhan. But the interesting thing is how many mixed signals we get from them. We've been trying to get a meeting with the Assistant Director of Weapons of Mass Destruction from the FBI. This is who investigated the COVID leak and the possible origins coming from the lab. I've been trying with Lindsey Graham, the ranking member of Judiciary, to get a meeting, a phone call, something from these people for months now, and they refused. Interestingly, Congresswoman Harriet Hageman asked Wray directly today, and within an hour, we got a phone call and got our meeting. So it's amazing. Sometimes when you give them pressure, you actually get a meeting, but it shouldn't take this just to get a meeting. So while the FBI has come out in favor of confidence that the lab leak occurred, why don't they want to share that with the rest of Congress or with the public? This stuff needs to be made public. It needs to be declassified. We voted unanimously a couple of months ago to declassify all the COVID information to try to let the public make their decision on this, and yet there's still this dragging of feet. So I don't quite get it, but I do believe the record will show that FBI agents did meet with those members of social media and big tech and did suppress opinions on this. We know for a fact that they were meeting and suppressing even things they thought to be true, but not to be to their advantage. They were suppressing with regard to vaccines.
You know, after hearing your story, Senator, I'm wondering out loud, too, why is it the FBI and these other alphabet agencies feel emboldened that they can just tell members of Congress, our elected representatives, to go take a leap? I'm wondering how we got to that point. Democrat presidential candidate Robert Kennedy Jr., Senator, alleging that Dr. Fauci knowingly hurt people in his handling of the China virus pandemic. Quote, I think that caused a lot of injury. There are many, many things that we did wrong in this country, and some of those were, I would say, knowingly, some of the things that were done by public health officials that they knew would be harmful. Kennedy was responding to Fauci's claim that Kennedy's growing popularity in the Democrat primary is somehow dangerous to the American public. Given Fauci's public statements supporting communist China scientists, his clearly political statements and recent revelations that he prompted a letter, allegedly, from scientists pushing the natural evolution theory rather than the lab leak theory, should we regard Dr. Fauci as a political figure rather than a trusted medical professional?
You know, 1 million Americans died, and they died from a leak from a lab in Wuhan that was funded by Dr. Fauci. He was asked in 2012, what if a leak would occur? Would you still be for this dangerous gain-of-function research? And his response would be that the knowledge was worth it. Well, I beg to differ. You know, I think the 1 million Americans who died and their families would say to Dr. Fauci, no, the research was not worth the risk. And the thing is, does he hold responsibility for that? Yeah, I think it's particularly galling that he tells RFK that RFK's opinion on vaccines or whatever is somehow dangerous, and yet Fauci's support of research that led to the deaths of millions of people worldwide is somehow not equally dangerous or more dangerous. So no, I think it's quite hypocritical of Fauci to be criticizing others, and I think he needs to be held to task, and we plan on it. I plan on exposing every last bit of the cover-up that he was involved with. This involved extensive use of public resources. It also involved Dr. Fauci giving an exemption to the research in China, basically saying we're not going to go through the standard protocol of the committee that's supposed to review the dangerousness of this research. It's called the Potential Pandemic Pathogen Committee. They were supposed to look and say, is this research dangerous? Dr. Fauci gave them an end around. All the research from Wuhan did not go through the committee that was established to determine safety. He avoided the safety committee and gave it his personal imprimatur. So yes, his hands are all over this, and he's not going to get away with escaping responsibility for this pandemic.
Senator, Congresswoman Malliotakis questioned Christian Anderson, one of the co-authors of the infamous proximal origin study, pushing that natural evolution theory. Malliotakis asked him why he suspiciously abandoned his initial belief that the virus was indeed engineered in that Wuhan lab. Watch.
On January 29, 2020, Dr. Fauci emailed you after you had expressed concerns to him on a phone call that you believed COVID would have been engineered. He told you that if this was true, you had to contact the FBI. You did not do that, correct?
I believe the email says that he will contact the FBI.
Okay. Do you know, either of you had contact with the FBI? Yes or no, to your knowledge?
At the time, no.
All right. So, Senator, what do you think Dr. Fauci said to his colleagues to get them to change their minds about the fact that this virus likely came as a result of a lab leak?
This is the million-dollar question. When this starts coming to the light, it's about January 31st, February 1st of 2020. We know only of this through Freedom of Information Act. Basically, a federal court forced Fauci to release his emails. What we find is that a group of very prominent virologists from around the world, all of them recipients of Fauci's NIH money, all came together. These are all proponents of gain-of-function research. That's what they've been politically advocating for, and this is the type of research they do. Gain of function, dangerous research to create viruses that don't exist in nature. They all came together, they looked at the data, and they said, holy cow, this virus looks like it was manipulated. It has structures within its RNA that look like they were created in the lab that don't exist in nature. And they were saying things like, I'm 80-20 or I'm 50-50. They were saying this for weeks, that they were leaning towards, not absolutely certain, but leaning towards that this was a created virus that leaked from the lab. But then there were secret meetings with Anthony Fauci. They all reversed course and publicly never said they had any doubts. Publicly, they produce a paper that's edited by Anthony Fauci, that's previewed by Anthony Fauci, that's essentially commissioned by Anthony Fauci. It's a politically motivated document meant to suppress questioning, meant to suppress anybody that might have the audacity to say this looks like it came from the lab, when privately they were all saying it looks like it came from the lab. There's something really fishy here. There's something to be discovered, but it requires the subpoena power of the House of Representatives to get there. And all of their records need to be subpoenaed, all of their lab records, all of their notes, all of their emails. There's still a lot of this that's been redacted. We get stuff from HHS and from NIH that's 250 pages long, all redacted, everything marked out.
Got it.
And so we are going to get to the bottom of this, but it's going to take the subpoena power of the House, and I'm confident that they will use it.
Senator, I've only got about a minute and a half left, and I've got two things I got to get to you, because the theme throughout this entire interview has been government's abuse of our people, suppressing our people's voice, suppressing the truth. You're introducing a new bill called the Free Speech Protection Act to prevent the federal government from undermining Americans' rights. You know, it's sad that you got to make a law. I'd have thought the Constitution was sufficient prohibition on that kind of thing. What does your law do?
Our law would prevent and make it illegal for the FBI or the Department of Homeland Security or any official from government to sit down with media and bully, imply, discuss, or in any way try to influence that media to take down constitutionally protected speech. The Supreme Court has clearly delineated what is protected speech. These are my opinions, your opinions. They can't be forced to be taken down. There's a big court case, Missouri versus Biden, where the judge has now come out with an injunction against government doing exactly what my bill would do. So I think we're going to win ultimately the Supreme Court, but in the meantime, Congress needs to take a stand on the First Amendment. You're right, it shouldn't be necessary, but it is necessary because government is meeting every week with big tech trying to take down opinions. And when Ray says it's not happening, he's not being honest. This is going to come out in court. There's a huge paper trail of all these people talking about it and advocating and bullying media to try to take down certain positions, and we're going to stop it.
And Senator, very quickly, this is just coming across the wires, and I just wanted to get your opinion on it. There's a new email out from the House 1 month before Vice President Joe Biden traveled to Ukraine, where he threatened to withhold $1 billion in U.S. aid if the Ukrainian leaders did not fire the top prosecutor. Hunter Biden and Burisma executives were discussing executing a contract for counter-messaging against any federal investigation into Burisma's founder and then president. The Republicans on the House side are up in arms over this email that shows why Hunter Biden was hired as a board member. Your thoughts?
There's a great deal of irony in that they tried to impeach or did impeach Donald Trump for threatening aid to Ukraine, when in reality, it was Joe Biden who threatened aid to Ukraine to stop an investigation into a company that hired his son for $50 grand a month. It is so topsy-turvy and bizarre that it's almost hard to believe this. But everything is not what it appears to be. Everything is upside down. They accused Donald Trump of exactly what they were doing. How can they get away with that? And how can the mainstream media be so complicit in allowing them to do this? But the truth is coming out that Joe Biden basically threatened Ukrainian aid in order to stop an investigation into a company that hired his son. And there's all kinds of conversation with his drug-addled son saying the dad's sitting right here. This has to come forward, and there has to be a testimony of Hunter Biden under oath.
Yeah, we've got it on tape. We've got Joe Biden on tape admitting to it. Senator Rand Paul, appreciate you handling the breaking news. We really appreciate it.